Hello and welcome to podcast 850,001. How is everybody doing today? I hope you're all doing well. Go grab a drink, get a snack, and settle in because it's podcast time. I'm joined by my co-host Casper. Hello, Casper.
Hello.
How are you today?
Hello, I am okay. It is very, very warm. Upstairs, it is roasting in my bedroom,
Yeah.
and I do kind of hate it. But other than that, I am all well and good. Thank you very much.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, it's really warm here. It's been getting warmer, I'd say, because it's sort of the last hurrah before fall and everything, or autumn. I don't know why I said fall. We're not Americans. Yeah. Podcasts. What do we do here? I forgot. It's been a long time since we've had the podcast without a guest to sort of direct questions at.
We just have a conversation.
Yeah. What do we do? What do we do? With So, in entertainment news, should we start off with Dead by Daylight are getting some updates. They're trying out skill-based testing again, so skill-based matchmaking, which will essentially mean that you get match made. This is a terrible start to a podcast.
You get matched with.
You get matched with players of a similar skill set to you rather than players of the same rank as you. So there'll be a hidden score that kind of tallies up how well you did. It'll probably be something like amount of times you hit someone as killer, amount of times you hooked them, amount of times you got hit with a pallet, and that will all accumulate to some off-camera score that then they can use to calculate who you get match made with next, which I think is the same for Apex Legends as well, because anyone who's played Apex will know what it's like to win your first match ever and then immediately, in fact not even your first match, every time I've won a match in Apex Legends, the next lot of matches are absolutely garbage because I did well for one game, so it sort of knocks me back down. And it's a kind of a sly way of doing it, I think, because what you do is you sort of create this false hope in people that they're doing really well, when really all that happened was they did so badly that they got lumped in with a bunch of other people that were doing really, really bad. And then they do well, go up, and then they do really, really bad again for ages, and the cycle continues. And it definitely adds to that addictive feeling that comes with games like Apex Legends, for example, because it's that whole sort of one more game, and then I'll win. And then you do win, but it's the 1 in 10 game that you've just won, and then the next 9 games are garbage, you know? That's not a very accurate thing. It's probably more like 1 in 50. But I don't know. It might be good. I think it'll probably be good for the game. I don't know what the difference really is between that and ranked matchmaking, but we'll just have to see, because isn't ranked?
I'm looking forward to matchmaking being based on ability, not rank, because I'm not very good at the game, but I've played it quite a lot. So
you've never played Killer before ever. You've only just started. Yeah, so you're not going to.
You get matched by your player rank, not your ability as Killer. So I was matched by people that were a lot better than me, and I did not like that. So I'm excited to be matched with players that are the same level of shit as me. Then
well, that's the thing though, is like you get matched lower and lower and lower until you get matched with people that you're better than, and then you beat them, but then you go up in that scoreboard and then start doing bad again. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it can probably help people get more into the game, I suppose.
I just want to be with people that I can actually kill.
Speaking of games that have been updated, anyway, I'd quite like to talk about Cyberpunk 2077. Like, is it worth it now? Is the question, you know? It's the question that I asked myself before I brought it. Anyway, regardless of the answer to that question. I did end up buying the game last week or the week before, I think, and I've been playing it for about a week or so. And is it worth it now? I think the question that the answer to that is more is more about the fact that you shouldn't expect things from video games ever. I think that's what because it's a classic tale, isn't it? Of video game gets announced, so many people have ideas in their head of the concept of what this game is going to be like, and then it comes out and it's not as good, right? That happens a lot, okay?
Yeah.
But in the case of Cyberpunk 2077, not only was it not what everyone hyped it up to be, it also didn't work. It was a glitchy mess that didn't work anywhere and got pulled from stores, right? Which I think was a historical first, if I remember correctly, at least for the PlayStation.
Yeah, it was, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that if you played Cyberpunk 2077 now, without knowing what happened when it came out, and without ever watching a trailer or ever sort of like getting that initial hype that people had for years and years prior to the game coming out, if you looked at the game without of those two things sort of clouding your mind about it, it's actually a pretty solid game. They've updated it. It's not as much of a glitchy mess. It still is quite glitchy, but then Skyrim is everybody's favorite game, and that is so much worse, I'd say. It feels right, you know. It's got that aesthetic, like that sort of like neon lights. Everybody's got cybernetic implants and stuff. There's still some really shit stuff, like if you go to a crowded area and shoot your gun in the air, all the civilians will run away and cower from the gunfire, right? But they will all do the exact same animation and the exact same and run in the exact same direction. So you've just got a bunch of people all heading to the same spot and then all crouching down with their arms above their heads in the exact same animation, and it's actually kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Because it really brings you out of that immersion. It's something that I hope would be fixed, not something I'm guaranteeing it will be fixed. But in terms of story and gameplay and stuff, it's not what because I had this hype thing as well when it first came out of like hyping up a game well beyond whatever it ever could have been. It's never going to meet that standard, but it's still good, you know?
Yeah.
Have you ever had any games, Casper, that you think that you got really hyped for and then were disappointed for when it came out?
Can we say all of the Adventure Time games ever made?
How many Adventure Time games are there?
There is an open world one now, which I played a bit of, but I haven't finished, and I probably could before I lose my subscription on PlayStation Now, or it gets taken off it. But there was the first Adventure Time game was called Adventure Time and What the Dungeon, or something along those lines, and they marketed it as like an open world / platform and Mario style game, and then it came out. I paid £45 for it because it was in the early 2000s, and no, it was in the late 2000s, and in that time, that's what games were.
Was it called Adventure Time Explore the Dungeon Because I Don't Know?
Yeah.
What a title.
It was not like anybody was expecting at all. It was a dungeon crawler, but a bad one. It was not a good one at all. Everything was repeated, and it just wasn't worth the money. Even the art style was nothing like Adventure Time.
Yeah.
It was massively disappointing. And that, I seem to remember, was the one game that I was actually disappointed in and actually returned to the store.
Oh,
Level of
did you manage to take it out? Did you manage to take it back?
Yeah, because I took it back
It was
the same
for the
day.
Nintendo 3DS, right?
No, I had it for the Xbox 360.
Oh yeah, there it is for the Xbox 360 as well.
And the reviews are bloody awful.
I don't even know if I'll be able to find any because this game got buried.
Yeah. The other Adventure Time games. The other Adventure Time games
let's have a
are
look.
apparently better, but I'm anxious about trying them because Adventure Time meant so much to me, and that game was so rubbish. They kind of put me off ever playing one of them again.
Adventure Time, Explore the Dungeon because I don't know.
Yeah.
Nintendo 3DS, 4.2 out of 5 on Amazon.
I just remember it being very, very bad.
Yeah.
And it was back when games were different on each console as well. Because that was a thing back then.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why, but
I think the issue, mate, because these reviews aren't so bad, you know? They're not the worst reviews for a video game I've ever seen. I think the issue is, I think it was built for the Nintendo 3DS, and then they might have just ported it to the Xbox. I don't know. I don't know the game. I don't know the story. I never played this, and I wasn't aware that it even existed. So I'm not entirely sure. But the reviews on Amazon for the 3DS version are pretty positive. In fact, they are pretty positive generally. I think it's just the fact that they may have just ported it to the Xbox and stuff, because ported games don't always go well. Looking at you, Batman Arkham Knight. Like, it doesn't always work.
Xbox Adventure Time, I explore the dungeon.
Because when Batman Arkham Knight came out, it's fixed now, but that also got pulled from the Steam store because it just didn't fucking work. Because they built it for consoles and then they just ported it, and it was a really bad port. They used a third party to port it to the PC, and it just ran like garbage. What?
Yeah, that's what they did with this Adventure Time game. The Adventure Time review is 2 stars out of 5.
Yeah.
But there is a lot more Adventure Time games now, and I was playing through Adventure Time Pirates of the Enchiridion, and that was what I wanted it to be. It's like a D&D open world game, but unfortunately it's only one player, and I would very much like for it to be 2 players, so one
there
person
needs to
plays
be more
as Finn and
2-player
one person
games.
plays as
Like
Jake.
there isn't really an excuse these days to have a game not be couch co-op.
Let me see if there is.
Other than, I guess, money. Money's an excuse people like to use, or they don't like to use it, they just do it. Because I guess you make more money, everyone makes more money if, apart from the person buying it, obviously, if your game has no local co-op and you have to buy an extra console if you're playing on console in order to buy it. The console people make money, Sony make money, Microsoft make money, and also the game dev makes money because multiple people have to buy their fucking game. Like a prime example is Fall Guys. There is, other than money, there is no reason why Fall Guys shouldn't be couch co-op. It is the perfect game to play with friends at home.
Split screen it.
Yeah, you would definitely need to split screen it, but you could have up to 4 people playing Fall Guys, because you can have up to 4 people in a squad on Fall Guys now anyway, but they all have to own a copy of the game, and that's just so annoying, man. Like, I would love to be able to just sit down with my housemates and play Fall Guys in the same room.
Yeah,
because that's a good time, you know. We played a game recently together, The Ascent, which came out fairly recently. It's kind of like a nice cyberpunky RPG game, but with top-down style rather than first-person. And that's local co-op. You can only play if you have 2 controllers. You can't play with the keyboard and the controller for some reason. But that's real fun, and that's an example of a game sort of doing it right. I know there was a lot of errors and issues with it when it first came out, but it's been good, you know? I really like that. There's a lot of cyberpunky kind of stuff that's coming out right now that I'm definitely here for, because I love that aesthetic. I don't know why. There's just something about it. It also paints a very bleak picture of our future, because there's always something in a cyberpunk universe, either like VR that's gone so far that people can't even tell what's real anymore, or new drugs that are so addictive that you just take one hit and you're done for the rest of your life, or cybernetic implants that, you know, fuck people up, or just, you know, general pollution and stuff. Or WALL-E. That's not a depressing thing. WALL-E's adorable.
Yeah, but everything about that film other than WALL-E and Eve is depressing as fuck.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, like either people become too lazy, like in future movies, in movies like that are set in a futuristic sci-fi universe, people are either so lazy that they lose like themselves, like the people in WALL-E, or they end up becoming like cybernetic monsters or something, committing cyber crimes with their cyber suits, because everything has to have the word cyber in front of it, because that's how we know that it's cool. But yeah, I am definitely here for the cyberpunk games. I really wish Cyberpunk 2077 hadn't been killed as much on launch. It's a good game. It's just a classic example of developers, well, not even developers, it wasn't the developers' fault, it's the higher ups, you know, the people, the CEOs, the people in charge just pushed it so hard, too hard, and they killed it. And they fucked up their launch, and now no one cares about the game, which is a shame, because I'd say it's actually quite a good game if you
feel sorry for the people that bought the Cyberpunk edition chair that was like £600 and bright yellow. And
Jesus Christ. Didn't even know that existed. That's intense.
I
feel sorry. I feel sorry for the developers. You know, the actual people on the ground who worked real hard to try and get a game finished, and then were telling the people higher up the chain that they were not ready and that it shouldn't be released, and then it gets released anyway. You know? Like, people probably lost their jobs and money, and and I heard that some people got death threats over the internet and stuff. No one deserved that. That's way too far. If you really give it that much of a shit about a video game, make your own fucking video game, and then you can see how fucking hard it is. I've tried to make video games. It is very, very difficult, which is why I always, every time I give advice on how a game could be better, I always say, like, games are hard and I don't know what I'm doing, so
yeah, that's why I feel bad complaining about games like the shitty Adventure Time game.
When you can see that someone tried, you know? Like, when you can see that someone really made the effort to either make you happy, keep you distracted, give you a scare if it's a horror game. When you can see that someone really actually tried and their heart is at least somewhere in it, that's lovely. That's always nice to see. It can be a fucking 5-minute long indie game, or it can be a weirdly cobbled together thing that just lasts an hour, or it can be a massive AAA game that took many, many years and takes hours and hours to complete. As long as you can see that people really, really cared about it whilst they were making it, that is part of the experience, I think.
Yeah.
But then there's some things where people just don't care, like those that released Cyberpunk too early. I don't know. Should we change topic entirely, because that seems to just sort of stumble to a halt?
I think
right, okay, so talking of terrible people, we learned that I guess we are now. Brian, thank you for the follow and the fuck sound alert in my chat. Yeah, talking of people that I don't like, Prince Andrew is finally having legal action taken against him, which is nice to see. I think
I can't pronounce the name either.
yeah, no, hold on. 1 second. I think I know how to pronounce this. So Virginia Giuffre. I want to say Giuffre. It's Giuffre. Virginia Giuffre. She obviously she's well publicized. I don't think she needs an introduction. She's very well publicized at this point because she has come out with all of this damning accusations and stuff against Prince Andrew and Epstein and things like that. And they are finally taking active legal action against Prince Andrew. They being her and her team of probably team of lawyers. But apparently she's claiming that she tried to avoid taking the case to court. But you know, she's got to push it now because this is something I didn't know that kind of destroyed my faith in humanity a little bit. Is there is a statute of limitations in New York for child sexual abuse?
I did not know that.
Why the fuck is there a statute of limitations on this? So anyway, she came out and she's and her and her team are now taking him to court over this. Because I think it was maybe a couple of days ago, or maybe in a couple of days, I can't really remember, that the statute of limitations runs out and she will no longer be able to. So she's started the process now because soon she won't be able to. And what do you think, Casper? How do you think this is going to play out? Like, this is going to take years. It's going to take years and years and years.
I think.
But I would like to think that you hope the same as I do that he will get to answer for his crimes, go to prison, and the whole facade of wealth and power, being able to get you anything you want with no repercussions, completely gets destroyed. However, how do you think it will turn out?
Yeah, that is what I hope for. However, I feel like what will happen will that he's rich, so he will get away with it.
Yeah. Yes. That's the thing. I think that he will never be able to have the public spotlight again, because a lot of this comes down to the court of public opinion. You know, that whole thing. It's the same sort of reasoning and the same kind of mentality as cancel culture, which sometimes is a bad thing, but sometimes is a good thing as well. It's a good thing when you legitimately call out publicly someone who is incredibly abusive and deserves it, so that people know, like, if it's a content creator or something, they know not to work with them, or brands don't pick them up, or in the case of the royal family, they sort of cut ties with him and he can't really do any sort of public appearances or interviews anymore.
Yeah,
that's good. You know, that I believe that kind of thing is good. The unfortunate thing is once you get past a certain point of monetary value, it doesn't matter. Not much in your life will change. If you're a content creator, like some of the people over the past couple of years that have been called out for some horrific stuff, if you're a content creator, then you lose your brands, you might not be able to make videos anymore. But if you've made so much money, all you have to do is, I don't know, anonymously invest in something. Like, buy a business, buy a shop, and just don't put your name on it or whatever. Because at that point, you've got so much money, the only thing you have left to spend money on is making more of it. You just do that, and you're set for the rest of your life. And that's the bad thing. That's the thing that because like you can make these people stop having their public appearances, but you can't make them stop living their private lives, and that's unfortunate. Like, everyone has the right to privacy, but people should be in prison. There are some people that should just be in prison, and I feel like he's one of them. Sahil, welcome to the stream. Thank you for showing up. Preach, brother, preach, says Sahil in my chat.
We are
yes, we're just talking about Prince Andrew. Yes, nonces are bad. I don't think that you really needed us to tell you that, but nonces are bad people. You know? Sorry to bring this completely mind-blowing revelation to your door, but generally, not generally, completely, nonces are bad people.
Yeah, and if you needed us to tell you that nonces are bad people, I think you need to recheck your life a little bit.
Yeah, legit. So yeah, how I think it will pan out. He's rich, he's wealthy, he's part of the royal family. I think that he will never go to prison or be arrested. However, I do think he will never publicly show his face again. However, I don't think that will really affect him much in his life, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it is unfortunate.
How I hope it will turn out is completely different. I always hope that with these things, every time I see something like this, that finally someone will actually get repercussions for their actions. Someone from the royal family, someone who, like, high up in government or whatever, who has done diabolical, horrible things, will finally get the what they deserve.
Yeah.
Never happens, but I really wish that it could.
Oh yeah, same.
No, Sahil, we're not gaming today. We are just doing the podcast today. But we did talk a bit about gaming news and stuff earlier. And we do like to talk a little bit about video games on here. Anyway,
we are also coming to the conclusion that podcasts are a lot harder to do when you don't have a guest.
That's not true. We did about like 20 odd episodes before we even had one guest. So
yeah,
you know,
it is nice to switch it up a bit.
Let's talk a little. We're on episode 30 now, right? That which means we've been doing 30 weeks worth of podcasts.
It's almost a year.
Yeah, it's over halfway to a year. Well done, us. Woo! I'm clapping. Clap, Casper. Casper.
I am clapping. Can you not hear that?
Oh, no. Casper?
Can you hear that?
No.
Why can't you hear my clapping? I'm clapping right next to my mic.
Clap really loudly.
Try again.
Nope.
My mic just isn't picking it up. For some reason, my mic is only picking up my voice. It's not picking up the claps.
That's a good quality microphone then.
That is, oh god. What if I clap and speak? Are you ready? Speaking. Did you hear that?
It makes your voice real fuzzy. I don't know. Anyway, the point is, we have made it to 30 episodes, which means we've been doing this for 30 weeks, which is really cool. And Sahil says, I really like a nice chill stream where I can just talk to the person. That's exactly it. That's exactly why we do this. So let's talk a little bit about the podcast and why we do it, because we've got 30 episodes in. So the podcast is podcast 850,001. And the reason it's called that is because when I looked up how many podcasts it said there were about 850,000 of them. Okay? And about 30 million episodes, which is why it's 30 million and 30, you know? That whole kind of thing. And the reason for that is because I just wanted to make a podcast where the whole point of it is that we're just sitting down and talking about whatever the hell we want to, and the message behind that is really anybody can do that. All you need is a
Yeah.
microphone. You don't even need a camera to broadcast on Twitch. You could just, pre-record some gaming footage and talk over that or whatever. You don't need much to start a podcast. You just need a microphone and something to process that microphone with.
Yeah.
And, that's where you start. And it's the same with all types of content creation. Like, if you're listening to this and you want to start that YouTube channel or that Instagram account or that art page or that website or start streaming on Twitch or just start a podcast, you can. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Sahil says, I definitely agree with the other person, which is Casper. Podcasts are really difficult. No, that's what I'm trying to say, though, is they're not. They aren't actually that difficult. Obviously,
I feel like they would be a lot more difficult if there was just one person. Like,
yeah.
Podcasts where people are just having a conversation with themselves, I commend them. Those people deserve a medal.
Yes. No, I have seen podcasts like that, and they do go... They are quite... Like, I do appreciate it, but also it can get kind of boring because... There's a clear lack of direction.
Listening to someone's stream of consciousness at that point, and it's a bit
yeah,
strange.
and like when you do that with streaming as well, like that's why it's called streaming. It's a stream of consciousness. But at least there's something like the streamer can distract with and from as well if they're playing a game or something. And if we're doing the podcast, we're talking to each other. This is getting very meta now, but
at least you've got a game to talk about and things to bounce off.
If you want to start that podcast, just start that fucking podcast, man. Just start the thing that you want to do because life is short and it's not really that hard.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm saying this because we're now currently meta-analyzing our own podcast and other people's podcasts because we ran out of things to talk about. So when I say that it's not difficult, obviously there's a bit of hypocrisy there because we are currently talking about that. But we just don't plan very well. That's all that this is.
Yeah, we didn't.
We could just
go
on we could just go on Twitter and have a look at what's trending. Like that's a perfectly valid thing to do, if that's what you want to do. Which is what I'm going to do.
That's what I'm going to do too.
Yes. Oh, actually, we could talk a little bit about some stuff that's happening on Twitch.
Twitch Do Better is trending.
Twitch Do
it's
Better
because of bot accounts.
Is trending.
Something exciting.
Yeah, there has been a lot of bots accounts recently. If you guys,
bot
by the
accounts
way,
are attacking marginalized creators, apparently.
They're attacking a lot of people. So essentially, what's happening with the bot accounts, and be wary of this, by the way. I don't really want to say any names of these bot accounts because I don't want you to look them up. But there are some names you will see. Like if you have a bunch of people follow you in a row, and they all have very similar sounding names, the chances are they are all bots, and you need to be careful. Don't click on them. Don't go to their account. Don't look them up. Don't go to any of that because there have been reports of some
They're incredibly
bots.
Racist.
I haven't heard that at all.
The bots.
Okay.
Judging from this hashtag, the bots that people are complaining about are all incredibly racist.
Okay, well, the bots that I've heard about are when you click on them and visit their page, you get they log your IP address, which means they can DDoS you. I don't 100% know what DDoSing is, but essentially, from what I have heard about it, it's sort of flooding your internet connection with so much stuff that it essentially shuts down and you can't do anything with it.
I don't really understand what they gain from that, but
Yeah, distributed denial of services. So, if if you've ever watched a Twitch streamer, like I've seen some big Twitch streamers, they play on a server, and then because they're playing on that server of this game and people can find what server they're on, they DDoS the server, which shuts it down because they're just trying to troll the streamer, you know? That kind of thing happens a lot. My question of the stream is still, who's your favorite serial killer? Let's just turn that one off real fast. For those that are lacking context, because this is the podcast and not my usual stream, I've been doing a question of the stream where I ask a user to submit a question of the stream, and because I was playing Dead by Daylight yesterday, the question was, who's your favorite serial killer from fiction or non-fiction? Sahil says, oh no, I saw you're recording the podcast for YouTube as well. Please excuse me if I spoiled the audience experience. This is the thing. This is why we call it a discussion podcast, because Twitch chat can be involved. And also, we do actually broadcast this. We broadcast this live, if you didn't know. That reminds me. Anyone who's watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or a bunch of other podcast places, because we're on loads of podcast places now. Yay! Look at us go, being professional and shit. You can, follow along, subscribe, and all that kind of thing. And if you can, leave a comment on whatever you're listening to this on. Please do. Feel free to add to the discussion, and we may bring up your comments in another episode and discuss it then. But if you would like to join in the discussion live, I broadcast this live over on twitch.tv/ZenithGames. Casper would be broadcasting this live, but he hasn't for a while. But yeah, that's part of the whole part of it is the audience interaction. Anyway, that being said about my question of the stream, Casper, who's your favorite serial killer, fiction or non-fiction, and why?
Probably Jeffrey Dahmer, because I'm old school. However, I do think that favorite is a...
Well, yeah, by favorite I mean interesting. Who do you think is the most interesting?
Because I think
they
Jeffrey
are all
Dahmer,
terrible
just
people.
because he did it all while living with his grandma in his grandma's house without her finding out, and I find that is the most...
Yeah,
it is the most
intense.
Shocking element of his story.
Yeah, and
because how did she not find out? How quiet was he? Because I could assume murdering people makes a lot of noise.
Yeah, probably. I think that's a pretty safe assumption.
How did he manage to smuggle the bodies out without her finding out? And how did that poor grandma feel after she found out that it was all happening? She must
probably
have been
devastated, honestly. Unless she was like a secret, unless she was a secret imposter and she was in on it the whole time, and then no one suspected her because she was. I
don't think she was. I listened to a podcast once who said that she wasn't.
No, she probably wasn't. But it would be interesting, you know. But yes, favorite is definitely the wrong term. They are all terrible people. Don't get me wrong, but it's definitely interesting because of how far human minds can go. Like,
yeah,
because you never really get a straight answer, you know, because usually these people are now dead, or they're no fit state to have any interviews or any kind of conversation about why, or they don't even know themselves why. They just did, and it was done.
Yeah.
My quote unquote favorite is Richard Ramirez, just because of that exact reason of like you can't explain that man's brutality. He just suddenly started killing. It was like he was
the ones that just snap for no apparent reason.
It was like he was just
are the most interesting, I think.
It was like he was just a demon that just popped up out of hell, just completely out the blue, and just started killing. He came out of nowhere. Just started not even a rampage, because it wasn't a rampage. He killed over multiple times. He planned stuff. He just did it in quite a short period of time and really intensely. And he just sort of skipped from house to house, just killing people for no real reason, and no one could ever really explain it. And he just essentially was just like, yeah, fucking Satan told me to do it, or whatever the fuck. That's not
Yeah,
what he
it
said.
was.
But like,
I did attempt
scary,
to watch
man.
that. I did attempt to watch that Netflix series about him, but it was just too long. It should have been 1 2 hour long documentary, as
No,
opposed to 8 1 hour
Richard
episodes.
Ramirez really isn't a very long story, because
It was
what the
talking
time?
about the people that like stayed in the hotel with him while he was murdering people, and the witnesses were being interviewed, and his loved ones were being interviewed.
Yeah.
And it just went on a bit too.
Oh wow, he died in 2013. Didn't know
That's
that.
not very long ago.
No, it really isn't. Sorry, I was just. Oh, he spent roughly 24 years on death row before deaths from cancer. That's interesting.
Wow, imagine being put on death row and then dying from natural causes.
Yeah, so it was.
I always thought they kill people straight away with death row. But...
It was a little over a year. No, because they have to sort of like wait it out. It's a little over a year that he did his crimes, like from April 10th to August 24. So it's really not a long story. It's just
Netflix just dragged it out, and it just wasn't
killed loads. 19. He was sentenced to 19 death sentences. It's interesting. Convicted for 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, 11 counts of sexual assault, and 14 counts of burglary. At that point, burglary doesn't really fucking matter, does it? Like, you get down the list, and burglary just doesn't seem to be that important. But yeah, it was a lot of acid and Satanism and stuff, which, by the way, as a Satanist, this man does not represent us. There's a difference between Satanists and devil worshippers, and this man is definitely a devil worshipper. I really don't like.
Was a very bad person.
I really don't like.
Was Jeffrey Dahmer. Never murder people in your grandma's house without.
Just don't murder people in general. I don't think the grandma's house has anything to do with it. Just don't murder people, I feel. But again, this is one of those things that if you need us on this podcast to tell you that, I think you may need to see therapist.
Yeah.
Also, Sahil says, my favorite serial killer is Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
You would have. We have watched the first one together, I think.
No, we watched the first Halloween together on Halloween.
That's interesting. I'm fairly confident we have watched the first Freddy Krueger
I've
movie.
seen Freddy vs. Jason.
I haven't. But yes, he's a very interesting one. I like the whole concept of going into other people's dreams, that kind of thing.
It's a bit terrifying, isn't it? It's like the BFG but evil.
Like the BFG but evil. If they make another Nightmare on Elm Street movie, they should use that as the tagline. I think that's perfect. Like the BFG but evil. That's quite funny.
Yeah, Casper should be in charge of the BFG, the new Nightmare on Elm Street marketing.
Yes, exactly. Someone did make the point during my live stream yesterday when this question, who was your favorite serial killer, was asked. Someone made the point of fictional. There's favorite fictional serial killers only because humans are scary enough without thinking about the terrifying aspects of the things that people can be driven to do or just snap and end up doing, which I think is a quite very valid point, really, because it is like the world is terrifying. I feel like we make up things as a species, as humanity. We make up things like Nightmare on Elm Street and Jason Voorhees, and Scream and things like that to sort of combat the idea of these people existing in real life, you know? If you turn it into like an entertainment, if you turn it into something that people can watch and maybe be scared by, but then go home at the end of the day and be happy and safe in their own lives, it's sort of it sort of makes things easier. You know?
Yeah.
It sort of vents people's fears into a creative aspect, which can make things easier. Generally, I find horror movies funny, and actually, if there's anybody out there listening to this on whatever, or in chat right now, do you find horror movies funny? Like,
It
is
depends
there anybody
what
else
sort of horror
who
movie.
finds
I find,
horror
like,
movies hilarious? Because I
I
find
like
horror
The
movies
Purge
so
and
funny.
stuff like that funny.
Yeah. Yeah, The Purge
Well-
is hilarious.
But there's a few of them
Hmm.
that I don't find
Well,
funny.
Well, the Chucky movies, like the
Chucky movies are meant
the
to
Child's
be
Play.
funny.
Child's Play. The first one is genuinely scary, but it's also hilarious because they're being attacked by a 3-foot high doll. That as a concept is ridiculously funny. Then the movies get worse and worse in terms of horror, but better and better in terms of how hilarious they are because they're just so bad. And I think it's the same with like Friday the 13th and Halloween and stuff, is as long as they don't try and take themselves too seriously, you can have a laugh with them. Even if they do take themselves a bit seriously, you can still have a laugh with it if it's a bad horror movie.
Yeah.
Like, horror movies are my favorite genre to watch because either you'll get a good horror movie, which will actually genuinely scare you, which I can only think of a handful off the top of my head that have managed to do that, or you get essentially a comedy. That's essentially what you get.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's just sort of trivializing or just making light of these things that actually exist in real life.
Yeah.
The only horror films that I think have ever genuinely scared me are that I can think of right now are It Follows and The Conjuring.
I get more scared by psychological thrillers. Like,
Yeah.
just because I find the ones that are so close to reality, they could be real. They really get
Yeah.
to me, and I don't know why.
What kind of ones do you mean? Give us a name.
I've forgotten what it's called, but do you know that one where he flips a coin to make decisions, and it's got Jared Leto in it, Requiem for a Dream?
Is it? No. Is it
That
called
one.
Requiem for a Dream? Because that's a different movie.
I don't know. I always think it's Requiem for a Dream. Which
like,
one's Requiem for a Dream?
It's about heroin addiction. It's about addiction in general. Is
Alright,
Requiem
let
for a
me-
Dream? It could definitely be described as a horror movie. In fact, pretty
I
much
think
everything that
Requiem for a
happens in
Dream
it is
freaks
a
me
horror
out.
movie. It's essentially a horror movie. Yeah, it's quite terrifying. That did
Also,
freak me
it's
out.
not the movie I thought it was going to be.
I haven't watched Requiem
Eternal
for a Dream
Sunshine of a
since the
Spotless
first
Mind, I
time.
think it was.
There's nothing about a coin in that one either. Eternal Sunshine from the
Right,
Spotless Mind
I'll get
isn't
back
even a
to
horror
you by
film.
I'll get back to you for next week with
Okay.
what that film is, because it'll take me a lot longer than.
Yeah. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is great. It could be described as a horror movie in some senses, but it's not really, you know. But yeah, Requiem for a Dream is definitely one. I found that one too depressing.
I
That
really
is
like
definitely
depressing movies.
That's definitely an example of a horror concept or design that is so close to reality that you just don't want to think about it. You don't want to watch it. I think at that point it starts to cross that line between fiction and reality that's just not comfortable to see. I've only
Yeah,
watched
I
Requiem for a
think-
Dream once. I never want to see it again because I've met people that are like the characters in the movie. I've had some experiences that are like the characters in the movie. I relate to it too much, and I'm also repulsed by it too much. It's just sets off all kinds of weird things in my brain that I don't want to think about. So I don't like watching it. But I also love the fact that it exists because I adore things that make me feel something, even if that something is so repulsed I never want to see it again. You know?
Yeah, I think
Like,
a
find
lot
that
of
really
movies
interesting.
about addiction are like that. Like I watched Ben is Back or Ben is Home, one of the two it was called.
Yeah.
And it was one of those obscure movies that I saw at the cinema at a really obscure time in the morning because it was just so small nobody had heard of it. And it
Yeah.
was about this lad who was in his early 20s coming home for Christmas from rehab. And it was quite possibly one of the worst, one of the most harrowing movies I've ever seen. And that really creeped me out because it could have quite easily been one of my friends. He came, I'm not going to spoil it, but it was about him coming home for his first family Christmas for years after being in rehab. And the whole atmosphere of the movie was just so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Especially when he was around the kids, because you could tell that the adults were like, he shouldn't be around the kids. Like, you never really found out what he did while he was on the drugs, but it was one of them you didn't need to know. It was very good, and I'd like to rewatch it at some point, actually.
Yeah.
A sort of horror movie I don't like as well are ones that are shocking for the sake of being shocking.
Yes.
Like a Serbian film is the first one that pops into my brain.
Yeah, there's movies
It's
that are
just-
designed for to be shocking, and they're boring as fuck, man. They are
Yeah.
really dull. Like, I don't, because there's no substance to them. If you can make me feel something as a symptom of a really good story, then that's one thing. But if you go out of your way to just shock factor me, it's just dull. It's just not.
Yeah,
There's
like
no
that
substance
Megan
there.
is missing,
If I
where there was like a 10-minute scene from the dead body's perspective. Spoiler: she dies.
yeah, Megan is missing was definitely very uncomfortable. There was a lot of scenes in that just didn't need to be there. And but the whole thing with Megan is missing is it's meant to be a shock factor film, and I think there were interviews with the cast and crew afterwards that essentially sort of showed that the whole idea was essentially to just shock teenagers' parents into being more careful with them over the internet, and things like that, which didn't fucking work, by the way.
Yeah.
And I think because most people would watch that and just think, oh my god, this movie is kind of shit, and it's trying to force this feeling rather than just letting the feeling come with the movie. This will being said, I have never written, directed, or shot a film in my fucking life, so I have no idea what I'm talking about. And I'm currently reading an article that just says senior medic sacked after prescribing antidepressants to patient's dog. Which I think is a far more interesting article than whatever the fuck I was talking about. There was a medic, and she prescribed antidepressants to a patient's dog.
Dogs
I don't know why.
I know dogs can get depressed.
Oh yeah.
Because seeing dogs after their owners just died is the most heartbreaking thing in the world.
Yes.
But
so
why did they get sacked for giving a dog
because you're not meant to give dogs antidepressants, I think.
But if they're depressed, why not?
Because they might not. Then they're not for dogs. That's not like the
did
idea.
They give them people antidepressants? Not
yeah,
dog
they gave them
antidepressants?
people antidepressants. Are there dog antidepressants?
I assume so.
They're antidepressants for dogs. Yes, they are. There are. Silomepramine is approved for separation anxiety.
Oh.
So you can
Well,
get
not
you
all.
can
I
get
can
you can get
imagine a
them
dog
to
with
help your
separation
dog feel more
anxiety would be
relaxed
really
and
annoying.
calm. But also, just look after your dog. You don't really need to be giving your dog medication unless they're in pain.
Yeah.
Like just look after your animals. And also, don't
Yeah.
go to your GP and ask for antidepressants for your dogs. That's just kind of weird.
Oh,
Also,
it
if
was
you're
a
a
doctor,
GP, if
not
you're
a vet.
no, it wasn't a vet. It was it was a GP,
I
senior
assumed it would be a
medic.
vet.
No, it's a GP.
Oh.
A woman went to her GP complaining about problems with sleeping and worrying, just general anxiety, that kind of thing. And she gave and the GP gave her antidepressants for the dog.
Well, that is
Not
unsafe.
sure why. Not entirely sure why. Researched online and found the drug could also be used for humans after she was given a prescription by the vet. Yeah, it's weird. That's a really weird article. Anyway, that's where I kind of want to end the podcast.
Yeah, that's a nice ending.
I just wanted to switch that out. The dog is fine, but hopefully not very depressed.
Yeah.
I would hope. I would wish. So, yeah. Thank you everybody for joining us over on YouTube and Spotify and the other things. Don't forget to follow or subscribe or like or whatever the fuck it is that you're supposed to do on whatever platform that you're listening to us on. And goodbye. I'll see you soon. Do you want to say goodbye, Casper?
Goodbye. I will see you next week.
Bye, podcast. See you later.
Bye,
See you later.
podcast.